Oh my gosh, where am I? How did I get here? This isn't my shop. It's my car though. Good morning everyone, and welcome to Not My Shop, and welcome to my Chevy Corvette base model. And welcome to what could be your Chevy Corvette Z06. Just click the link in the description or the pinned comment below, or go to go.getentertowin.com/100%Jake, buy a mug or a digital download. I came up with the mug design myself, so I'm rather fond of it. And that will get you entered to win this Chevy Corvette Z06, which we're gonna talk about more here in a minute. So again, click the link in the description or the pinned comment below, buy a mug or digital download. If you buy a mug, I wanna see a picture of it. Post on Instagram and tag me 100%Jake. I wanna see my mugs out in the wild, what can I say? Back to the cars. In the pantheon of Chevrolet's performance models, the flagship has always been the Corvette, like seen here to my left. But then Chevy made a flagship of the flagship and called it the Z06, a name that they derived from the RPO code of the performance package on the C2, I think. The Z06 is America's sports car with even more sauce, and in my mind that turns it from America's sports car into America's supercar, with an unwavering dedication to what makes the Corvette great in the first place, taking all that and adding a little bit more to it. But let's talk a little bit about the difference between these two cars specifically. My low mileage C5 Corvette that I bought for $9,500 in New Orleans and drove back, and this Corvette, which is very similar but better. What you're looking at now is two of the best features of the Chevy Corvette. One, hoods that open the wrong way. I love that. I'm a sucker for that nonsense. And two, the LS V8. This is the LS1 because it's the first LS. It's a 5.7 liter, third generation of Chevy small block architecture, making 350 horsepower and 350-ish pound-feet of torque. Fact check me on those numbers. I'm pulling them out of my head. Power is sent to the rear wheels, as it should be, through a Tremec T56 transaxle. You all know this already. In the Z06, we have the LS6, which is not the sixth LS, it's the second one. That makes sense. Compared to the LS1, this one makes more power. It also makes more torque. How much more? Read the Wikipedia article, I don't remember. I've been informed that it's 385 horsepower in the earlier model years and 405 in the later, which isn't the biggest jump ever, but what makes it feel completely different is the rear end gears, which are far shorter in the Z06, and that's a big deal for two reasons. First of all, peppier acceleration, and second of all, gives you a lot more time to enjoy the manual transmission, because you're not, doing 90 in second gear. Speaking of that 6-speed manual, the Z06 was only available with the manual, as it should be. The alternative on the base model was a 4-speed slush box, which is the same transmission used in the Buick Roadmaster, and you'd expect that they would have tuned it differently for the Chevy Corvette, but they didn't. It still drives like a Buick Roadmaster. Traditionally, the Corvette has been a fastback with a target top, but for the Z06 you get a notchback with a fixed roof, and imaginatively, they called it the fixed roof coupe. You still get a completely open cargo area, but you have a smaller trunk opening. What this gets you is about 200 pounds less weight and additional torsional rigidity, which is good for something that's meant to be a track car for the street. Meanwhile, on my Corvette, we have a hatch that opens and a roof that comes off. Personal taste, I kind of prefer this, but if you like the fixed roof coupe and for some reason you don't want the extra power, GM did oblige you by coming out with the Chevy Corvette fixed roof coupe, which is exactly that, a Z06 without the Z06y bits, just the fixed roof coupe. And they called it the fixed roof coupe. Those words are starting to become meaningless, I've said them too much. Also, the Z06 has these brake ducts. They cool the brakes. I think we all know how this works. Certain celebrities like to point, laugh, and chortle about this, but why? If that was a TVR, they would be talking about TVR's unwavering commitment to building a lightweight car by not bothering with such superfluous things as structurally reinforcing a cosmetic bumper cover. But here we are, the butt of jokes for some reason. The interior is traditionally 90s GM, and I mean that in a derogatory way. A luxury car this is not, but that's what makes it such a good sports car. You know, every single penny in this went to the drivetrain, the suspension, and the chassis design. Why waste money on making the plastic a little bit thicker when you can spend that on making the engine go vroom a bit more? And of course, everyone knows about the awful seats and the ugly steering wheel, though I will disagree with a lot of people. I find the steering wheel very comfortable, albeit not all that great to look at, but it is nice to hold. And the seats in this example are still in decent enough shape. They're not completely crushed down, so I still have some lumbar support remaining. Imagine that. That said, most people ditch these seats for literally anything else, and I don't blame them. They're kind of... they don't do much to hold you in place. This particular car has a Hurst shift knob on what I believe to be a stock shifter and a double din head unit with a radio surround. This is all a replacement piece, which also includes a slightly better cup holder than the stock one, because you couldn't really make a cup holder much worse than the stock one. It also has a more usable little storage space for your stuff. We're in my car now. Could you tell? They're both pretty darn similar inside. There really weren't a whole lot of interior changes for the Z06. The main differences are due to how mine was optioned. I have the incredibly uncommon manual climate controls with self-removing knobs. I have new ones coming for that. And mine has the stock 1.5 DIN radio that was put in basically every GM model of this era. Corvette did not get a special radio or anything like that because, you know, it doesn't make it go faster. What I do wish they did a better job of was this shift knob is a crime against humanity. It's a leather thing that's got a bunch of thick foam under it, and it kind of wiggles and weeble wobbles around and is generally very unpleasant to use. This is also kind of one of the few cars that I actually wish had a short shifter in it. I don't generally like short shifters, but I sit so far up in these cars. First is pretty comfortable, but second, I've almost got to dislocate my shoulder to get into it. It feels like I'm really tucking back to get that really long throw in. GM build quality. So that's most of the differences between the Z06 and the base, or rather the lack thereof. There really wasn't anything locked behind the Z06 outside of raw performance. You couldn't not have the nicer climate controls, or not have the Bose stereo, or not have the heads-up display just because you had a non-Z06 model. You paid your extra money for the Z06, and all that money went into things that make the car faster. So sitting in them, these are just two Corvettes with different options packages. The difference is how they drive. So let's go see how they drive. Ladies and gentlemen, it's base model time. Why did it not start? Because I bumped the key back into accessory. Go me. The C5 Corvette is best thought of as a Chevy Cavalier with V8 power and very little ground clearance. And it's very good at being just that. This car is an excellent daily, though I haven't really been dailying it all that much because, well, literally day 2 of owning it, I turned too sharp in a parking lot while leaving a parking space and scraped the passenger rocker against a curb, and so it's been at the body shop. Fortunately, the body shop did a great job, and you can't even tell. There was actually some pre-existing damage under there. So the car is actually better now than it was, and it only cost me $800. $350 horsepower isn't a whole lot by today's standards, but it's still more than enough to be fun, and probably more importantly for a daily, it's not enough to really get in trouble with. I just stood all over it in first gear, and the car just went straight down the road. No drama, no problems. Shoved me back in my seat pretty good. Now, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm not really in love with the way that the LS1 delivers power. It doesn't have the escalating sense of drama that I like an engine to have. I'm a big fan of the way AMG V8s deliver power, the way a Coyote delivers power, the way a BMW Straight 6 delivers power, where the longer you hold the pedal down, the harder you get shoved back into that seat. It builds and builds and builds and builds on itself, and then you shift, you get a brief respite, slam it into gear, and do it all over again. On these, you're not really getting anything by going past 4 grand. It just kind of stays the same. It's more fun to shift early and feel that big lump of low-end torque. Boy, does it sound good. Oh, what a noise. It sounds good on the downshifts. I don't quite love how notchy these shifters are. There is also a lot of road noise coming from back there. But that's the price you pay for getting to hear that noise when you accelerate. The highway manners of the base model are pretty composed. It just sort of cruises. Mine has blown shocks, so it's a bit floatier than most, but overall there's really not much to complain or write home about. This is not a car that punishes you for driving it, which is probably why so many people put miles on their Corvettes, and it doesn't hurt that this is the powertrain out of a Chevy Silverado, so you know it'll be dependable. Now here in Kansas, I can't speak too much to the handling prowess of this car outside of a couple of on-ramps and off-ramps. There's not really a lot of chances that you get to really explore the handling of a car like this outside of a track. Fortunately, we just so happen to be right near close to one of those on-ramps and off-ramps. One downside, though, of the Targa here on the non-Z06 is there's a lot of seals, and there's a lot of wind noise, and there's a lot of road noise from the hatch. It's not a quiet place to be, is what I'm saying. I'm having to raise my voice quite a bit. Having a conversation with my passenger, not easy. I mean, I don't have a passenger, but if I did, it would not be easy. Ah, the car in front of me got out of the way, so let's toss this thing into this corner and see how she does. And let me tell you why skid pad numbers are nonsense. Things are flying around in the trunk. Skid pad numbers are 99% tire. Pretty much every car in a given class of cars is going to put down extremely similar skid pad numbers given the tire. I bet if you were to take some cars from the 80s, sports cars that got pretty mediocre skid pad numbers, and put them on modern rubber, you would get a significantly different result. So you can get, 28 miles per gallon highway out of this car, but for some reason, I'm not getting that. And I'm not really sure why. Time for the Z06. Oh, man, this has headers and an H-pipe and stock axle back, and that is just about perfect. Also, Elliot's here, but he's not mic'd up, so good luck with that.
I'll just try not to talk much.
Oh, it sounds so good. The throttle response is a lot crisper in this car versus the non-Z. And I kind of prefer the way this delivers power, if I'm honest. But I guess we'll really see once we get on the highway. The ride's a little bit stiffer, but that's not really worth much because my car has blown shocks anyway, but in any event, it's not punishing at all. This is still perfectly daily drivable.
And road trippable.
And road trippable. I would probably rather drive this than mine because the seat is not collapsed. In mine, the seat is so far collapsed that what's supposed to be lumbar support is more like middle back support, which is less than ideal. I believe Mr. Alvis would like a race. I think we'll just go from a roll here in second gear. I'm not trying to beat this car up, and I'd prefer to not have to launch it. This takes the human element out of this anyway. Eat my dust! Got him! Ah, damn it. That's my car. Ah, crap. What is up with this security guy? Bro, what are you in your Jeep Liberty? Get out of here. Highway merge. Let's go for it. No traction, none whatsoever.
Oh, and the sound.
Ah, it sounds fantastic. And man, what a fantastic chassis. Now, a lot of car reviewers will include lots of gratuitous shots of them sliding the cars around sideways. And if you're a practical-minded person, you might wonder, why are they showing me this? That's not a car driving fast. Well, what that is the ability to control a slide, or in this case, the ability to go straight with the tires screaming the whole way, is an incredible indicator of chassis communication and rigidity and suspension setup and all of that sort of thing. Try holding a slide in a sloppy car. It's very difficult and it's not going to be super precise. Same thing with driving in a straight line. If you do that in a solid axle car with blown shocks, like every Mustang ever, you're gonna have a bad time, like every Cars and Coffee attendee ever. Not so in this. It just goes where you want it to. It's telepathic. Now, Mr. Regular came out with a video just yesterday with this very car. He sat where I'm sitting now. Yes, I did smell the seat. But he was of the opinion that this is just a bit too much for a daily driver. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong, but I'm saying there is a very different perspective between someone who lives somewhere where there's a lot of tighter, curvy roads and someone like me where this arrow straight highway is what most of us spend a lot of our time on. It doesn't matter. Now, I actually think that this is a very good amount of fast, probably the upper limit of what I would want to daily drive, because I can have my fun shenanigan times without just immediately doing 140. It's the same reason I really dislike, say, a 600 super sports motorcycle. They're really not fun until you whack it open and you blink and you're doing $160. To me, any vehicle where the gimmick is whack it open and you're doing $160, that's a bad gimmick, because that's a gimmick you can only enjoy at the risk of your license, your life, and other people's lives, and I'm not about that. This is a car that's fun in most situations. Even driving around town, these C5 Corvettes are a lot of fun to just lazily shift and chuck it into fifth and just cruise around town at 40, and just every now and then just kind of, oh, I'm not in fifth, just every now and then just kind of, you kind of get why boomers drive, oh, the pop-pops. You kind of get why the stereotypical baby boomers drive these the way they do. It's very well suited to being a cruiser, which for such a focused sports car is quite a trick to pull off. Now again, I'm not saying this is a nice place to be. Like I said about the base model, this is a fast Chevy Cavalier. This is a fairly low mileage example, and it's all right in here. It's quieter than mine in here. There's a lot less wind noise. The fixed roof coupe really does make a difference. Let's see how sketchy these old tires are on this same off-ramp we did earlier. And like I said, this is why the amount of G's a car can pull is largely nonsense. That's pretty good though for how wrecked these tires are. I'm definitely not at the limit of grip. Oh yeah, that heel toe downshift and then just feeding it in.
Feeding it to a camper trailer.
Hell yeah. Ah, it is time for the headlights. Whoop. I could be happy with either of these cars, but the Z06 is just a really good car turned up to 11. Not 20, it's not insane, it's not undrivable, just more car. Personally, I like the Targa and I like the hatch, but that's completely subjective personal opinion. There's still a ton of trunk space back there. But this car just gives you the sports car experience, an excellent chassis, an excellent engine, and an excellent trans, limited slip out back, leaf springs because it's a Conestoga wagon at heart, and nothing you don't. but you can still eke 26, 27 miles per gallon highway out of it, and it's reasonably practical. You're not killing yourself to have one of these as a daily driver, especially if you're, no kids or single or whatever. Well, it's getting dark, so let's head back to the warehouse, and I'm going to leave you with the swan song of the LS6. All the way to Red Line.
Man, sounds good.
So you know how bananas go bad really fast? This banana just goes fast. The Z06 is a pretty comprehensive collection of tweaks and improvements over the base C5 that really elevates it from an American sports car to, even today, a very competitive car in the world market. And back in its day, I would have classified this as a supercar. And even today, it is a pretty super car, and it can be your super car if you click the link in the description or in the pinned comment below. Or go to go.getenteredtowin.com/100%Jake, get a mug or a digital download, and you will be entered to win this Chevy Corvette. But you're gonna wanna hurry because the deadline to get entered to win this car is the 22nd, so you don't have a lot of time. And thanks again to GetEnteredToWin.com for supporting small channels like mine, and thanks to y'all for watching these videos and buying the mugs, because it all helps support creators like myself. So go get the mug, get the digital download, support small channel, and potentially win this. Thanks for watching.